Get more from the cloud, a podcast by AWS cloud experts at Ingram Microcloud.
Well, hello again, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Get More from the Cloud podcast. Last time we gave a pretty high-level overview of what it looks like to build an AWS practice. Clearly, you can't kind of cover everything in 45 minutes as it relates to building a successful practice. We do want to kind of drill down a little bit, start narrowing that focus into some of these topics that we covered. And one area that we're going to talk about today is really kind of foundational to the success of a practice. It's also foundational in building out and showcasing the capabilities you have as it relates to your customers and your AWS teams that you work with. So today we're going to spend some time talking about training and certifications. But first, I'd like to welcome back our co-host, Tad Davis, our AWS Global Technical Consultant here at Ingram Micro. So Tad, I'll let you kind of jump in and introduce our guest from the AWS team.
Hey, thanks, Colby. Appreciate it. Glad to be back, everybody. So today we've got two guests from AWS. We've got Casper Tortella and Adam Vandamia. Casper, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first?
Sure. Thanks, Ted. Hey, everyone. My name is Casper Tortella. I'm a Partner Enablement Manager, or a PEM, within our Global Partner Training team. So my job as a PEM is to work with consulting partners or system integrators and help them build out scalable training and certification programs for their employees.
Thanks, Tad. Adam Vandamia here from AWS Training and Certification. I'm a business development manager focused on our AWS Training Partner Program. We'll go into more details as to what that is, but I help work with Ingram and their downstream partners around skill-based learning as well as certification training paths.
Cool. Thanks, Casper. Thanks, Adam. Training is one of the things that I'm passionate about, and I get into quite a few different things that lean into training. But one of the things that I want to talk about first before we get into it is an important tool to use to engage with your customers and help drive their interest in AWS. It's called AWS Immersion Days. It's a topic for another time to dive into, but really quick, it's a great tool to help accelerate opportunities that you need to meet those launched opportunities when we talk about services tiers and things like that. But it's also a great way to drive interest in opportunities. The reason why I bring up Immersion Days, though, is it's just that. It's something to help with opportunity generation, if you will. But it's not general training enablement. One of the things when I do a general Immersion Day and it talks about what an Immersion Day is not, it's not a substitute for AWS training and certification. That's where we're going to focus more on, let's say people that are just learning about AWS and need to start their progression through that, or if they need to be able to focus on some more architectural development type training skills and goals. So back to that first part though, when somebody's just starting their AWS journey, Casper, can you talk a little bit about some of the things that can help them along in that AWS journey?
Yeah, sure. And I think, before we jump in and talk about AWS in specific, I think it's just really important to level set on what we actually mean by getting trained, right? So truly by definition, training someone is really just upskilling them or teaching them a specific action based on a certain skill set. So if I were to kind of put my AWS perspective on that, really, we want to educate people on how to better use AWS so that they are knowledgeable from a sales and delivery perspective and also able to act as that real trusted advisor to their end customers. So when we look at training and certification on the AWS side of the house, in the partner training world, we really kind of focused on two major bubbles. We have role-based training, which is going to align to a specific role. So a data scientist, a functional consultant, an IoT engineer. And then we also focus in specifically on skill-based training. And skill-based training is going to really hone in on a specific solution area, like something like SageMaker or Connect, so on and so forth. And then within our skill-based training subset, we have both a technical and a business focus. So we're going to teach you how to be a good partner on the business side of the house, as well as the technical side of the house on that solution-specific training. And then finally, as Adam mentioned earlier, we also have certification-specific training, and that training is really geared towards getting your employees and your resources certified for a specific AWS certification.
Thanks, Casper. So one thing that I really like this topic a lot because I like to consider myself a pretty avid learner. I think learning is always important, both personally and professionally, just as you continue to kind of develop out your career. And especially this is particularly relevant when it comes to AWS because it is, AWS is constantly changing, constantly evolving. And going back to why training and certification particularly is important to partners is it validates who you are as a partner. So when you're selling yourself to your customer, when you're selling yourself within the AWS ecosystem, not just saying, hey, I know how to do this, but having certifications to back it up, both from a sales perspective and from the technical perspective, it helps you kind of validate kind of who you are as a partner and kind of validate that superpower. We talked about a little bit on our last podcast is like, well, what is your superpower? What are you really good at? And so like having official training plans in place and then getting those certifications so that way your staff can kind of showcase, hey, not only do we know, but AWS has validated it through the certification process. Anyone have any thoughts just around that kind of the value of training and certification as it relates to sales team, technical team, and the business as a whole?
Yeah, Colby. So I actually think that the value proposition for training and certification can kind of be broken out into, I would say, 4 or 5 different buckets. The first bucket kind of being that build phase. So, getting trained and certified, it'll really increase productivity, make your teams more efficient in troubleshooting and can ultimately really help accelerate the completion date for cloud specific projects. So first and foremost would be the build phase, right? And then after that, I think that security is always a big topic here. So, now that we've built everything and we're delivering our projects quickly, more efficiently, training and certification really allows everyone to level set from a knowledge perspective and then also kind of bring specific facets of AWS to the front of their mind and more specifically security. A couple of other areas that I've seen really be a focus area for the training and certification side of the house were reducing downtime and ultimately reducing deployment time. So once you kind of have that cloud first mindset and you're aware of all of, or most of AWS's services and solutions, you can never be an expert on all of them. Trust me, I've tried, not possible. Once you're able to kind of have that cloud first mindset that you gain through getting trained and certified, you will absolutely be able to, deploy much quicker. And that kind of leads me into my second to last area, which would be increased innovation. So I think that there are a lot of people with a lot of great experiences that are super transferable to the cloud world. And getting trained and certified in AWS allows you to kind of right size your previous experience and put that AWS lens on it to help your company build faster and more efficiently. My personal favorite out of the areas that I just spoke to is actually the recruitment and talent retention portion of getting trained and certified. So companies that do offer training and certification programs for their employees typically see a much higher employee satisfaction and retention rate. So those for me are really, I guess, like my top 5 value areas currently for training and certification.
And if I can add to that just quickly around AWS certification, a few years back, we did do a study where we took a poll of our AWS partners and specifically asked them questions around how achieving AWS certifications helped or didn't help their business. What we found is 55% of partners agreed that it improved the quality of their solutions and their deliverables. 36% agreed that it increased the number of customers migrating to AWS solutions, and 31% agreed that it shortened their implementation time. I think this piggybacks well with some of the comments that Casper made there. But as you all know, as AWS, we are a data-driven company, and we'll continue to take a look at certification and its impact it has on our partners. We're already seeing a lot of impact and positive results from pursuing AWS certification as partners.
And then I also wanted to bring up as well, Colby and Tad, I think you all could shed a bit of light on this is, the Ingram and AWS relationship and how we are able to collaborate with you as a distribution partner to really create scalable training and certification programs for all of your distribution sellers. So Tad, I don't know if you wanted to kind of shed a bit of light on that. I see a ton of value for both Ingram as a distribution partner as well as all of the employees at your downstream distribution sellers.
Yeah, thanks, Casper. That's what I was going to talk about as well. When we think about training, I kind of think of it in three parts, right? Like there's when I'm saying this, I'm thinking about like building a plan, because I think it's very relevant for partners to build their own internal training plan. And that's, the first part of that is really coming around and understanding, what AWS is, and then building onto, you kind of mentioned it earlier, we've got business technical tracks. I kind of think of them as personas. We've got sales personas, we've got technical personas. Thinking about continuing education for the sales team, continuing education for the technical team. And when we talk about training plans, we'll get into some tools that we will talk about here later in the podcast. But back to what you were saying, like one of the things that we've been doing really well here at Ingram, it's almost coming up on a year now, but we've been doing these cloud practitioner boot camps. So Casper brought this initiative to us. It's a great way to tackle those knowledge requirements that are out there for the services tier. Remember, you need at the select tier a couple of business accreditations, a couple of technical accreditations. You want to get that cloud practitioner, and this boot camp really allows for getting those accreditations knocked out, studying and building on that knowledge to get to taking that cloud practitioner exam. Casper, you want to explain a little bit more about the purpose and the design and how you kind of came to those two?
Yeah, actually, really quick before we dive into the cloud practitioner boot camp. So, sales guy in the room has to talk a little bit about the sales side of things and why I think the points you guys just made are super relevant from a sales perspective. So, going back to this cloud practitioner boot camp, this is kind of that foundational knowledge of AWS. And what do salespeople sell? They sell what they know. So, like trying to understand the value of this as it relates to our partners and why we bring this to our partners and why we work so closely with AWS is ultimately that we want to enable our partners to enable their sales team to sell the things they're comfortable selling with to help generate more revenue. So it's, again, like being the sales guy in the room, I always want to figure out what it is that's going to help push more opportunities through our customers. And ultimately, again, going back to the more you train your staff, one, the happier they are. And two, the more they can then market that out to their customers as, hey, we know what we're doing. We are deploying secure environments, and we have the trained and accredited staff to showcase we're doing that. So again, being the sales guy in the room, had to kind of talk through like what it is from a sales perspective that kind of really shows the value here. So sorry to kind of jump in there and interrupt Casper, but yeah, if you want to kind of talk through kind of the cloud practitioner boot camp and how that came about.
Yeah, and I mean, I do appreciate the sales perspective there, right? Especially considering within the cloud practitioner boot camp, the objective of the boot camp in and of itself is, of course, the cloud practitioner certification, which is AWS's most foundational certification. But the program is really designed to take someone with little to no AWS knowledge to being able to kind of walk the walk at a high level across all of the AWS services and solutions across compute, storage, database, network, and management. So the Cloud Practitioner Bootcamp had this idea a couple of years ago and have really scaled it out with a lot of my colleagues to numerous partners. And we've had a lot of success using this framework. It combines both digital training and instructor-led training, as well as kind of hands-on guidance from the AWS experts in order to really get people over the hump for that Cloud Practitioner certification. So typically the program is a 3 or 4 week program. And throughout each week, the participants are responsible for completing digital content. So week 1 is focused on that business accreditation, which really is our most foundational type of knowledge check. And the business accreditation is intended to educate people on cloud concepts. So what is AWS? How is it different from on-prem? And what are some of the core AWS services that you need to be knowledgeable on the business side of the house? After that, we would go on and complete the Cloud Economics Accreditation, which is my personal favorite accreditation. I come from a delivery and consulting background, and the Cloud Economics Accreditation really taught me how to articulate the business value of the cloud to my clients that I were delivering to. And I'm going to stop here and kind of ask you, Colby, what is your perspective on something like the cloud economics accreditation, where it really focuses in on things like the cloud value framework and being able to articulate the business benefits of the cloud? Do you think that is like helpful during the sales cycle? Or I'd love to hear your sales perspective here.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I also come from a bit of a consulting background, and at the end of the day, you're not selling widgets anymore. So it's not just you come in there and you're selling what's the cheapest object you can possibly get, and it's a race to the bottom. So when it comes to AWS and selling infrastructure, you're really kind of having to identify what the challenge the customer is facing, and then when you're helping solve the solution, you need to understand kind of the economics of how AWS solves that, whether it's the total cost of ownership, who's going to manage the environment, the cost associated with managing the environment. So whether you have a fully managed workloads within AWS or something where it's more of an infrastructure thing where the customer will. So understanding those core concepts from a sales perspective are incredibly valuable. And again, like having this training that walks you through that, as opposed to just, kind of figuring it out as you go. And we always have this like kind of running joke here is, can you spell AWS? Like there's nuances to it that are required to know what it is and how to sell it and how to talk through AWS. And you can very quickly get out of your element in front of a customer if you don't know what you're talking about. So yeah, I agree that the economics portion was probably one of the most valuable pieces of going through that process, because it talks to those, not just the services and the workloads, but why those services and workloads make sense for a customer and how they could be valuable.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate that perspective there. And that is what I've seen as well, especially being on the consulting side of the house. Just to jump really quickly back into the program framework. So week 1, we've got the business accreditation. Week 2, we get the cloud economics accreditation. Week 3, typically, we recommend the participants attend a virtual instructor-led class, Cloud Practitioner Essentials, which is going to focus in on everything that they need to know for the certification. And then in week 4, typically, we will do some hands-on exam prep, like a live quiz show, content review, so on and so forth. So using that framework, we typically get an extremely high pass rate for the cloud practitioner certification. Kind of to piggyback onto what Tad said earlier about the tier upgrade, if you actually look at the knowledge requirements of the tier upgrade, this cloud practitioner program helps you in just one 4-week program. It actually helps you achieve all the knowledge requirements for the tier upgrade from registered to select. So not only are you getting 2 accreditations and a certification, but you're also helping your overall company out from a knowledge requirement and tier upgrade perspective. But I did want to call on Tad here really quickly to have him kind of talk through the value that Ingram has added by kind of taking the reins on this program and running it on a quarterly basis for all of your downstream distribution sellers. I mean, from a scale perspective, I think it's really important to highlight what you've done here. So Tad, if you could take it away, that would be helpful.
Yeah, thanks, Casper. It's been a great program that we've already run a few times here in North America. We've done it also in other regions. So for our listeners out there, if you're not North America based, I mean, we've done these in ANZ. We've done these out in the EMEA region as well. In fact, we've got some that are coming up in the next few months. But it's turned into a great program where partners see that value because they're wanting to really, again, knock out those accreditations, knock out those foundational certifications, that cloud practitioner certification. And to be able to do that in a 4-week period, it doesn't take a whole lot of time, right? So when we're talking about this, we have a kickoff meeting that first week. We might have, an office hours the next week to talk about your business accreditation studies that you're supposed to be doing that's self-paced. And then we'll do a content review. We do those throughout that 4-week period to kind of really help bring everybody together and bring up to speed and review the knowledge that's been covered. And I think that's pretty valuable. Sometimes it's challenging, right? To sit there and do these studies on your own, trying to find the time to do it, but being able to have somebody come and work with you and keep you on task, keep you on track, really does make stick a lot better. And I feel like you're so much more prepared when you go and set foot into, maybe that Pearson VUE testing center, and you're ready to take the exam. So look for those coming up if you haven't been able to participate in any of the cloud practitioner boot camps that we've had. But I think to what you said there, Casper, it's a huge value that we bring from distribution, being able to do that kind of stuff and start ramping partners up on that. So that's part of the knowledge requirements when we get into select tier, even advanced tier, because the other part of that, right, is more of the technical requirements. And that's where we get into, we're talking about associate level certifications and training for that and pro or specialty certs. So Adam, can you speak a little bit more to that? And then I can come back here in just a minute and we'll talk about how Ingram can help out around those certifications too.
Yeah, absolutely. So as Casper and Tad mentioned, the cloud practitioner boot camps are an excellent starting point for any and all individuals across your organization to get the baseline AWS knowledge needed to really start your journey. When you start to look at next steps, the next step is logically our associate level of certification. Ingram, as an AWS training partner, has access to our fully authored AWS curriculum aligned to each associate, professional, and specialty certification that we offer. Now, these classes range from architects to developers to operations folks and into more specialized areas like machine learning, data analytics, security, and others. Ingram, as I mentioned, has access to that curriculum. Many of these classes are 3 days in length, but can range up to 5 days. The classes include a live instructor, books, hands-on labs to really help each individual not only prepare for certification, but gain the hands-on skills needed to be a more functional user on the AWS platform. At this point, we have 27 classes. Some of the classes align to cert, some do not. But Ingram, as one of our ATPs, has access to all 27 and can deliver all 27 courses we offer.
Yeah, and some of those ones that align to certs, right? Those are the architecting on AWS or developing on AWS, the SysOps administrator on AWS. Those are your associate level courses that you'd want to take. Those are the 3-day courses that would help build up your knowledge and help you study for the associate. Can you talk a little bit more about maybe some of those pro or specialty courses as well? What are the names of some of those and where people could focus on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So a few of them are pretty logical after the ones that you mentioned. So we've got our advanced architecting, which prepares individuals for their professional architect certification. We've got our DevOps engineering course, as well as our advanced developing, which help in both our professional level certifications in those tracks. Some other classes to keep an eye on, and some that are more popular. Our security engineering class has become and is one of our most popular specialty courses and one of our most popular certifications. If you've worked in the cloud at all, or if you've had conversations and security hasn't come up, I'd be shocked. So security, definitely one of those topics that we see more and more partners wanting to dive into from the front. Colby, I think you wanted to jump in there.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick. And so the interesting thing is we're talking about a lot of different certifications and some training courses that Ingram has to offer through the ATP program. The one thing I think we can really assist with, though, is how to help partners navigate which ones make sense for them. So again, I went back to, I mentioned superpowers multiple times, is, hey, what are our partners really good at? What do you bring to the table as an organization? We can help you navigate the right paths for your team to make sure you're getting the right certifications. They're going to really kind of bring the most value to your customers and that you're solving the right solution. So again, I just always want to call that out, that part of our value is not just delivering on those. Of course, we do that, and we can certainly support kind of everything there, but we do have a sales organization that's really kind of help our partners understand from their business perspective, the right ones that make the most sense so their team has the right certifications to align with what they're good at.
Yeah, and I'll jump in on that too. Like, I love what you're saying about superpowers, because it's important. It's important to take what you do well and be able to train your people, to what they need to learn about that in AWS. When I think of superpowers, or I think of training, I think of like an infinity symbol and stuff like that, because there's so many different components to that. And that's where we can provide value too, because when we're thinking about what you do well, we want to help develop not only your short-term goals and what to focus on, but longer-term goals. When you get to the advanced tier, you start thinking about competencies. Some of those competencies require certifications. So it's good to sit there and try to start mapping that out in those initial stages, because you want to make sure that the certifications that your team is pursuing are going to be helpful whenever you get to that competency level. That's an important thing to focus on there as well. Any other comments about that? Or
Yeah, I think one thing that I did, I almost kind of want to roll it up one more layer instead of focusing specifically on, getting certifications to help achieve a competency or a knowledge requirement. To me, I really like to break out training one layer up. So I'd like to look at the output. So typically with a certification and certification specific training, the output is going to be whatever certification you're pursuing, right? Like it's architecting on AWS would associate with the solutions architect associate certification. But then I also kind of like to focus in on that solution side of the house. And I think that this also talks about, or this also aligns to superpower validation as well. So, if you're a shop that is focused on Amazon Connect, you're probably also going to be doing a lot of data analytics work on the background. And although you're not directly delivering that piece of work to your end customers, I think it's important to kind of expand that service offering to kind of help you offer a more robust solution. Even if Connect is your end solution, you're going to be doing a lot of like supporting data analytics work and machine learning work on the background to help you deliver that robust Connect based product. So for me, it's kind of working backwards from the goal. The cert stuff is very kind of like one-to-one. You take a cert course, you get a certification, but then on that role or solution specific side of the house, I think it's really important to focus in on, hey, do we want to upskill our employees so that we can deliver better in a specific service area, or do we want to expand to a completely different service area and build a different solution for our company, or do we even want to kind of like upskill our sales or account manager type of people on how to better identify AWS related use cases in that specific service area? So I think I really like to roll it up even in one more layer and break it out as to certification training or that solution specific training.
Yeah, good call, Casper. I like where your head's at. That's exactly the way I like to approach it as well. So good call out there. So kind of moving on, we talked about a lot of the different training paths we have, a lot of different tools that we can use for training, and how Ingram can support. Tad, I'm going to pass this over to you on some of the tools that are already kind of built in within the AWS ecosystem. I know that you mentioned personas, so the type of persona you're working with. You want to kind of start talking about kind of what's available on the AWS ecosystem and kind of what we can do in conjunction with AWS to deliver on those?
yeah, thanks, Colby. This is kind of where Casper was talking about this a little bit earlier when we said, business and technical. I think of sales personas. I think of like a DevOps persona and things like that. So there's some native tools in AWS to help with that. One of them that's really good to use your search engine of choice and bring up your AWS Learning Path tool. So the Learning Path tool is a great tool, not to be redundant, but to be able to go and choose in the first drop-down box that you have, what is my role? What do I do? So if it's sales, you select sales. If it's a DevOps architect, you select that. If it's somebody that's focused more, like Casper said, AI, machine learning, select that. And then the next drop-down will actually have, what is your focus area? So to what Casper was saying about services. So I could choose sales and I could choose general. And it might give me a good path like we've talked about for Cloud Practitioner. But if I chose sales and I wanted to focus on, say, Microsoft workloads, then it's going to give me a great curriculum to start taking and working on those classes. So I'm more knowledgeable about Microsoft workloads. The other one I really want to kick over and let Adam talk about, but what I like is, and I say that this is like the big brother to the Learning Path tool, is what's called the learning needs analysis. So Adam, you want to spend a couple of minutes drilling into that?
Yeah, absolutely. As Tad mentioned, our Learning Path tool is really helpful and designed for individuals to explore and understand the classes that are a good fit for them. The LNA is a tool that allows us to take a look or a deeper dive into a larger set of individuals. The LNA, or the Learning Needs Assessment, is a web-based tool that we use to evaluate and take a look at the existing skills that you as a partner have in-house, the existing certifications that you have in-house, but more importantly, the existing skill gaps that you may have across your organization. The tool itself can be done relatively quickly. It takes each user 5 to 10, sometimes 15 minutes to complete, but the output from the LNA is where we can start and build out really informed training plans, dedicated training plans for individuals, for teams, but also for organizations. We can get very detailed and granular into some of the digital classes. We also provide recommendations for the instructor-led classes, combining all of this into a wide organization, or I should say a larger scale organization-wide training plan. The tool itself is a self-assessment. It's not a test, but it really does help us get a starting point for where we need to train and where we need to focus our efforts.
Now we're starting to build an internal training plan. And one of the, there's several components to this, but one of the things, Casper, I wanted to ask you about is tell me a little bit more about, I'll say the newly rebranded, as of October of last year, Skill Builder platform and how that enables partners to level up on training.
Sure. Yeah. And before I talk about Skill Builder, I do just want to give like a quick role overview on how Tad and I are kind of working together to build out this training and certification program for Ingram. So as a PEM, as I stated earlier in my introduction, my job is to work with our partners to help to build out training or scalable training and certification programs. And typically as a PEM, it's going to depend on requirements, but I like to use a couple of different mechanisms in my training plans based on whatever the partner's needs are. So we've got a couple of different mechanisms in a training plan. The first being digital self-paced training, and that is kind of related to what Tad just mentioned, Skill Builder. So at the end of last year, so end of 2021, we launched our new learning management software, or LMS, skillbuilder.aws. And Skill Builder is where all of our digital self-paced training content lives, as well as all of our PartnerCast content. So anything that's digital, self-paced, or a pre-recorded webinar, that is going to be on skillbuilder.aws. So all of that solution training that we talked about, like machine learning, Connect, IoT, whether it's a business role or a technical role, all of our digital self-paced content is going to live on Skill Builder. So that's kind of one mechanism that I typically use when trying to build out a training plan. The other mechanism that I like to use would be instructor-led content that is focused specifically on solution areas. So Adam earlier mentioned that certification specific content like architecting on AWS, so on and so forth. So Ingram is there to help deliver the certification specific courses, but here at AWS and the partner training team, we deliver instructor-led content that is based on specific solutions areas or delivery areas, right? So we've got stuff like machine learning on AWS Business that's going to cover things like SageMaker and other ML services and how to be a good ML partner. But then we've also got other, pro serve boot camps that are focused purely on delivering, like how to build out a contact center using Connect. So on the partner training side of the house, typically as a PEM, when I'm building out a training plan, I like to use that digital self-paced content that lives in Skill Builder, and also some of our free instructor-led training that's focused on solution areas that lives on AWS.training. Additionally, I also collaborate a lot with a partner solutions architect or a PSA to run some live quiz shows, some exam prep sessions, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of different kind of areas that we can pull from when creating a training plan, but primarily I like to use Skill Builder for that digital self-paced content that's free to all of our AWS partners, as well as AWS.training, which again is going to be that instructor-led content that is free to our AWS partners as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Casper. So I know we've covered quite a few topics today. So just to kind of start wrapping things up around training itself and kind of how we can work together. So Ingram Micro, we deliver cloud practitioner boot camps for our partners in conjunction with AWS. Ultimately, this is that foundational level sales type training that's certified that we expect kind of all of our partners to kind of push their sales teams through so they kind of have that foundational knowledge. And again, great tool just to get our teams kind of up to speed. Next level, Ingram Micro being an ATP partner. So we are an AWS training partner. We can offer the next level of certifications for your technical team, help them kind of really achieve what they're looking to from their superpower and what they really want to kind of showcase to their customers in AWS that they're really good at. So this is where Ingram can help support that. And again, building out the plan. I know we talked about multiple times, having a game plan when it comes to how you want to approach training, what you want your team to be certified on. That's where we really shine. That's where Ingram come in. We help you both from a business planning perspective. How do you want to go to market? How do you take your solutions to market? How do we help you generate more sales? All the way through, hey, how do we on the back end get you trained properly to achieve these goals from a business perspective? So that's where we really come in to help from a scale mechanism with AWS. We help support that with our partners. Again, that's just what you get when you work with Ingram Micro as a distribution partner. So to really kind of wrap things up, Adam, Casper, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you guys today. Tons of thoughts and insights that we can kind of share with the team. I know that we're only kind of really scratching the surface on the full value of training, education, certifications within the AWS ecosystem. But I really hope our listeners are walking away with something and at least can gather something out of this. Hope that anyone who's listening, we'd love for you to reach out if you have any further questions, if you want to learn how we can support you and help you generate a great training plan. But really just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning in. Please join us next time as we continue to explore the world of AWS through the lens of our partners.
Thanks for listening to Get More from the Cloud, a podcast by AWS cloud experts at Ingram Micro Cloud.